Alright, so which pals you should be breeding for or preparing for the world transfer update, if you want to get a little bit of a head start or just some basic utility pals. So this list will be going through a little bit of the pals that you might not have maxed already. Like not these typical workers like Astegon, Germanside, Ignis and stuff like that, but rather some pals that you might not have already in your playthrough, not maxed Shadow Beaks, you're probably gonna have stuff like that already. So just some things to consider world transferring to your new save with a couple of assumptions. So first off, you're probably gonna want some starting food, some early game food, and you're just gonna be able to use the campfire food until you unlock the cooking pot. So you might want to breed a full work speed chickpea, just because when you have your basic campfire, you can make some fried eggs. You can see that they have 21 nutrition, 1 sanity, 23 nutrition, 1 sanity, 5 workload, 5 workload. So it's just something so you might not have to use those early plantation pals like you would need. You're pretty limited on base slots. You probably only have like 3 to 5 base pals. Just plopping a chicken in there with max work speed, getting some fried eggs up and running could be a good option. So I'm just gonna dismantle this real quick, or disassemble, because the fire noise can be a little bit annoying before I continue. So I'm gonna try to move through a little bit. So you can of course like breed some max combat pals and transfer over, but I'm going to be covering a little bit of the different pals. So as well, full speed Vixie. Now I'm not usually a big fan of Vixie, but if it's something that you start with at like level 1, 2, 3, with a full work speed one, you're going to be getting a lot of spheres. Also some extra bones start stashing up, you get some extra gold. So it's something that is actually pretty viable to transfer at least one, maybe a couple, just so you can sort of start getting a jump start on your new save. Maybe not have to spend so many of the first nights just mining stone and mining ore yourself. Getting some of these spheres, you might even end up getting some of the red spheres and yellow spheres and green spheres eventually. It's pretty slow, but you'll get a lot and a lot of blue spheres using Vixie. Then we have some of these early game glider pals. So we're moving on to something like Killamari. So we got Killamari and Celeray. So maybe you're using Gale Claw and Hang You, but they're available a little bit later in the game. So getting some either one Killamari or one Celeray 4-star. Killamari has a little bit of an updraft, Celeray is more of a basic one. So it's either one. Killamari can be pretty hard to get 4-stars off on a normal playthrough. So having one of these set up and ready is also pretty fun. Then we have Dire Howl. The full speed Dire Howl, because this is the assumption. I'm assuming that when you're transferring pals, you're not going to be getting your Jet Dragon saddle or your Xenoloord saddle or your full speed Rayhound saddle or whatever with you. So having one of these really early game saddle pals at full speed ready to go could be pretty useful for you. So getting a full speed Dire Howl is something that I will definitely be doing. I don't have one ready, but that could also be fun. Same thing with Nightwing and Vanworm as these early game flying pals that you get at level 15 and level 21, I think. Having a full speed or maybe even like Eternal Engine, because Nightwing's stamina is pretty low, so having those ready to go can also be pretty good. Same thing with having like a work speed Doomwood for the high quality pal oil or work speed B, but these are pals that you might already have maxed out, so don't need to go too deep into those. Then we should have Serpent somewhere around here. That's another one, level 10 swimming pal. So you probably don't have a max speed one, but it can be a lot of fun to get a swimming Serpent and go to Feybreak at level 10, collect some eggs, get some junk piles for good spheres and treasure chests and stuff like that. The Serpent is also something that you could breed from max swimming speed one. Then we got these sort of mining pals. There's something to consider as well. Same thing with the chickpea, as I mentioned, is the food in the early game. You won't have salad and pizza and all those good foods ready to go. So maybe starting with transferring Astegons is going to set you back in that you need a lot of food. And you're probably just mining stone and ore for the first like 30-40 levels anyway. So just getting like Tombat, mining level 2, transporting 2, but it's also nocturnal. So having some good Tombats or some good dig toys, they don't need a whole lot of food. You could even do a Doomwood if you want to. They're good options to bring for these early game things. And also if you do bring the Mount Vanworm is also a great transporter. So that's also something that you could bring over as both a mount and a little transporter army. Then we move on to some utility pals. So Verdash, not only do you probably want one for some food production or handiwork, also very low food here if you compare it to using some of those late game pals. It's got decent base skills and all them, but what you're really after is probably this partner skill. So starting at level 1, you will have this move speed ability before you unlock any sort of saddle. So you can choose if you want to go, like have it in your party as a little quick handiwork pal to send out. It's a decent fighter pal as well. Grass isn't super useful, but you could also do utility, like give it logging 4-man, mine 4-man, vanguard, stronghand strategist, and just send it out to run around. Also decent. And then something you might not have considered is the Sibylix. So for gold in starting game, you might not have a lot of options for gold. Having a Silk Maker Work Speed Sibylix is actually a pretty great way to start getting gold if you have a maxed one with work speed in the early game. Not sure why this one is 11. I've actually made some decent Sibylix on my save, so this one, wait, capture count 137, capture bonus 11. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but anyway, so getting that farming high quality cloth, you sell the cloth, get a lot of money. Since you don't have a lot of options for making gold in the early game, it's just a great way to kickstart the economy on those first few levels. It doesn't really have anything else going for it. It's a decent combat pal with the ice skill as well. When activated, uses a blizzard spike, but I'm not sure how that works with the level scaling either, or if pals are going to keep their high level attacks and stuff like that. But Sibylix, good for gold. Moving on, I think we're going to scroll past some pals here, because now we're reaching these mid-game pals that you might have for combat or mid-game mounts anyway. So we're going to go past all these Anubises and Nylines and Orsurks and Shadowbeaks, because that's just stuff you can bring. Kruajiro, I actually have one out, so let's just show, if you have a max star Kruajiro together with that Celery or Kilamari, great way for getting around in the early game. Ignore the triple jump boots, then you get your glider pal. It's a good way to get around, and Kruajiro isn't that bad as a combat pal either. You can choose as well, you want to use it as a utility pal, but reading combat passives on it isn't bad. It does have wall splash naturally. It will deal very well with those fire pals. So Kruajiro, let's go back into the Palpedia. Thankfully it didn't scroll all the way up again. Where were we? Kruajiro, then we have Suits here. Something to consider maybe instead of Tombat for mining, but mostly farming bones again. Could be pretty nice to have a work speed Suits here, ready for farming bones. Otherwise you buy bones, I guess, or something like that, but it's also an option. Then Yakumos is something that you probably want to have a couple of 4-star Yakumos with the different, like either mount speed, attacking, base worker Yakumos. So you can sort of choose to transfer them to your save if you don't want to breed for all those passives again, especially like rainbow passives on legendary pals and stuff like that. But you probably have Yakumos ready to go. Then we have Dogen, mostly for the partner skill. So it's usually one that I keep in my party when leveling, just to have that Homeward Thundercloud built-in ability. So again, you could go a little bit of work speed, you send it out, it has a great handiwork skill to just quickly help you build some of those early game structures. Otherwise, just again, Vanguard, Stronghold Strategist, stuff like that, like these booster stuff, Mine 4-man. Dasimu, a great pal to have when leveling. Like you get the saddle at level 22 or 24, I think. So very early saddle, one of the fastest mounts in the game overall. It gets a lot of speed on sand when it's fully condensed. You could go attack passives on it because it does learn Rock Burst eventually, but probably looking to get it with full speed passives. So just something that I will be using this world transfer for a lot is getting mounts. Because I don't really feel like having a full speed mount. Doesn't feel like cheating to me. Like maybe if you transfer a maxed out Shadowbeak to your level 1 character, it can be a little cheesy, but just getting around faster. That could make the game a little bit more fun if you've already played through it once. Mimog. So the Mimog partner skill is something that you can also use for the utility part, just not carrying around a lot of keys. That's mostly it. get it to 4 stars, it unlocks chests for you. It does have high defense and also holy burst and stuff learned naturally, but otherwise it's mostly for that utility part with the keys. Then we have some of these Feybreak pals. Did I scroll past what I wanted here? No. So Oma School. Again, you could either use it as a utility pal for the XP gain on party pals. Makes it a little bit more fun to be switching pals around in the party. They will gain levels a little bit faster. I personally tend to out-level my pals by quite a margin. So having one of these can make it a little bit better at 4 stars. And again, it's a good combat pal with the soul drain ability. Not a great worker as you can see. So that's mostly just for either, again, utility with the boosting abilities or go full combat on it and have some fun. Splatterina. Now I recommend Splatterina when leveling as well over Anubis because of this low food consumption. But that's one of those worker pals that I said I wasn't going to recommend, but I just think it's worth mentioning. Early game, your bad food production, it's going to help to have some Splatterina low food consumption. Tyrantris, same thing as Dasimu, a low level saddle. I think it was level 28 when I checked. So getting like a full move speed or a combat Tyrantris and you just spin web in real close or whatever it's called, the Tyrantris web. Shooting close and use some rock burst and air blades and stuff like that. So that's also an option for just a fun early game pal. And I think those were the pals I wanted to mention. Like, of course, as I said, going like full work speed, Frostallion, Nox and Astagons and stuff like that, always an option. You'll probably be bringing them over at some point, but most of these recommendations were just utility or to streamline it. So just something I wanted to add as a bonus, depending on how these world transfers work. Maybe you could transfer a bunch of alpha pals and hope to butcher them for the schematics. I'm not sure how that is going to work, but that is also an option. Like, if you really want like a legendary bow in the early game, you could transfer a bunch of King Pakas, I think it is, that drops that one. You could transfer a bunch of jet dragons for the legendary rocket launcher eventually. Depending on how it works, if they let you do that butchering stuff with pals you transfer, you can just catch a bunch in your main save. Or you just butcher alpha pals for a bunch of parts. You don't have to farm ancient civ parts. So that's something to consider as well. Just farming pals to butcher on your new save if that is how it works. But I would probably wait with doing that until the patch drops just to see how it works. So I will be putting the full list of the recommended pals now at the end of the video. So for now, thanks for watching.